Okay, so we're going to show you just a really simple combat here between a Pilatus figure and a Hydrus figure. So at the start of the combat, both players choose to select a card from their hand to play in combat. They both select a card and put them face down, and then at the same time they reveal. Okay, so the Pilatus player has played a aggressive 6, and the Hydrus player has played a defensive 5. That means the Pilatus player will be getting 6 dice to roll in attack, and the Hydrus player will be getting 5 dice to roll in defense. They need to roll equal to or under their respective statistics. The Pilatus player will be looking to roll at or under 4 for their attack statistic, and the Hydrus player will be looking to roll 4 or under for their defense statistic. Okay, and we're going to be using the advanced combat table because it's more interesting. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 successes for the Pilatus player, and the Hydrus player rolls, and they get 2 successes. Okay, so the Pilatus player has doubled the Hydrus player, which basically means that the attacker beats the defender and doubles him, so the Hydrus player would lose 2 health. Very simple. Okay, same example, but we're going to add a little bit more to it, because you can play boost cards during your turn. During an attack or a defense to increase the number of dice you can roll. So, let's have a look here. Both players are going to play their cards in attack and defense, and they flip. Again, Pilatus has 6, Hydrus has 5 in defense. Then the Pilatus player has the option of placing up to 1 or 2 cards face down as boost cards. Thanks, Leo. So he's going to place 2 cards down there. And then the defender has the option of playing up to 2 as well. And he's going to play 2. Now, when you play boost cards this way, they don't actually have to be boost cards. You can just try and fake out the defender to either get rid of some more cards or to get rid of the boost cards that he might be needing to play. So, then we reveal. And what do we have here? We have 1 regular boost card, which adds 1 extra dice to the Pilatus figure's number of dice he rolls. And then another aggressive 6, which actually adds an additional 2. So the Pilatus figure now gets to roll 9 dice in attack. Let's have a look what the Hydrus figure had. He had 1 regular boost card as well. And then he had an aggressive 5. Now it's the same number, but it's a different symbol, so that only counts as 1 extra. So you got 1, 2, and then the 5. So he has 7 dice in defense. Okay, so let's roll and see what happens. Oops, that was a 2. 1, 2, 3. That's not a great roll by the Pilatus. And the Hydrus player rolls 1, 2. Equally bad. Okay, so the Pilatus figure rolled 3 successes, and the Hydrus figure rolled 2, so that beats it by 1 but doesn't double it, so the Hydrus figure would lose 1 health. Okay, let's have a look at that same combat again, but let's modify it by using some card effects. So both players play their cards face down, and then they're revealed, and again there's our 6 and our 5 as before. Both players have the option of playing boost cards. Attacker first, defender second. They're revealed, and that's 1 regular boost card for each. So Pilatus will be rolling 7, and Hydrus will be rolling 6. 7, 6. Now, because the Pilatus player hasn't used a tribal token on this particular Oculite this turn, he's going to spend a tribal token to then use the effect on a card he has already played. And this one is opening. Oh, I'll get that into focus. Opening. When attacking, each 0 rolled counts as 2 successes. Now, if he had a card like that from his hand, he could have played it from his hand, but he doesn't want to waste any more cards from his hand, so he's going to choose to use the tribal token to play it from the card that's already played. So, I'm going to roll these dice. The Hydrus player opts not to do any abilities yet, card effects. Okay, so there's a 0, 4, 1, and a 2. So that counts as 2 successes, 3, 4, 5 successes. Okay, and the Hydrus player rolls his dice, or her dice. A 0, 3 and a 3. Now that 0 doesn't count as 2 because the Hydrus player didn't use the card effect. So Hydrus player has 3, Player's player has 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't quite double, okay, but it does beat it. So again, the Hydrus player is going to lose 1 health in this example as well. Okay, this time we're going to have a look at a gang up attack. So as an action, the Florist player moves his figure in to attack the Nimbus player. The Nimbus player is already in base contact or in an adjacent space with his Florist player. So he is going to, the Florist player is at an advantage. They will be getting extra re-rolls that are equal to the attack statistic of this figure. Okay, so this figure's attacking and they both play cards face down. And then they're revealed, and we have an attack of 9 and a defense of 8. Okay, both players have the option of playing boost cards, and they choose not to at this particular point in time. So, the Florist player is going to roll 9 dice. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 successes. For the Florist player, and he can roll up to the attack statistic of that. So he's going to re-roll 4 dice, and he's going to, whoa, okay, cool. Gets 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So he has a total of 3, 6, 8 successes. Now the Nimbus player going to roll his dice, and he gets 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 against 4, so it doubles him. So this Nimbus player is going to lose 2 health. But then, of course, after a combat, the Florist player has the initiative, so they're able to play a card effect after combat if they wish. They choose not to, and so the Nimbus player chooses to play a tribal token to use the effect on the card that he's already played, which is Retreat, which says after a combat move, one of your figures a number of spaces equal to its speed without taking a breakaway test. So he doesn't have to suffer another defeat at the hands of the Florist players on the next turn, and he can get out of there. So the use of your cards is extremely important. When to play them, how to use them, when to use your tribal tokens. Remember, you only have 5 tribal tokens for each scenario, so it's very important that you use them and conserve them carefully. Okay, looking at the natural selection deck, we can see that we have 16 different card effects which can be utilised during a game. We have Tussle, Collect, Shove. Now Shove is, the card text has changed, this is an old prototype card. Opening Defence, Precise Defence, Opening Attack, Heal, Precise Attack, Any, which means you can use any of the card effects, Help, Trip, Adaptive, Retreat, Swing, Steal, and Fake Out. How you use these different 16 abilities and card effects will really determine how you go during a scenario. The timing of and use of these effects is extremely important. So let's have a look at how some of these cards can be used in a game. Okay, let's zoom in on this particular combat. This combat's just completed, but at the end of every combat, if you haven't played a card effect during this particular combat sequence, you have the option to do so. So the Pleiades player chooses to play Tussle. Tussle's great in this particular situation because it says after a combat, swap places with your opponent's figure. Now there's a couple of risks involved with this particular swamp terrain, because if you get stuck in it for more than 3 actions, you actually get sucked under. So the Pleiades player, one of their abilities is called Swamp Wise, which gives them a greater ability to get out of that swampy ground. So he would take a test to see if he actually moves out. He draws 2 cards off the top, gets a 10 and a 5. He definitely gets out, so he is able to move out, which then swaps the two figures because of tussle and puts the Ignis player in the swampy ground. So he has to take a test, but because he's an Ignis player, he doesn't have Swamp Wise, which means he's going to have to draw a card off the top to see if, with the value of the card and his attack, it's 10 or higher. And he draws that card, and it's only a 2. So he does get stuck. So he's going to be stuck for that 1. And then on his next activation, if he gets stuck 2 more times, he's gone. Other situations where this would be really handy, tussle. If you're an Ignis player and you're in a lava flat and you want to tussle and switch places with someone else, puts them straight into a lava flat and straight into danger. If you're a Hydrus player, do it with deep water. If you're playing a scenario like the ridge where you have to take that ridge and you have to be on top of it, play tussle and put them closer to the edge so that then on a later turn you can shove them off. Okay, the next card effect we're going to be having a look at is Collect. Now normally when you move into a space with a Sungeum to pick it up, it'll end your action for that turn, or for that action. So he has a move of 6 and he would have wasted 4 spaces of that. If you play the card Collect, which I'll put over here, it says while moving you may pick up a Sungeum without stopping this action. So he could then go 1, 2, pick it up, 3, 4, 5, 6 and actually complete his move. So it allows you to be more mobile on the field without worrying about having to stoop down, pick up the Sungeum and waste some spaces of movement, which especially late in the game can be absolutely crucial. Okay, the next card effect we're looking at is Shove. Now the revised card of Shove actually has 2 different abilities which are similar but executed at different times. The first one is if someone comes and charges you before a combat takes place, you can spend 1 tribal token to then immediately shove that figure away 1 space and cancel the combat. So that can be really beneficial. You can shove them to there, or to there. So that can be really beneficial. But if you don't want to waste your tribal token and you decide to go ahead with a combat, after the combat takes place, then you can just shove them away for free by playing that card. So you play the card and then it shoves them away 1 space. Okay, so you can play a tribal token to do it before the combat takes place and avoid that combat altogether. Especially useful if you're holding a Sungeum, or if you think, well, it doesn't matter too much if I've got some good cards for this combat, or I want to damage this particular figure. You can do the combat and then shove them away afterwards, so you're free to move into a better position for yourself. Okay, the next flavour of card effect we have is Opening. Now this is both available in attacking and defending. So when defending, each 0 rolled counts as 2 successes. So we've got the Florist player on the right here that's rolled 2 zeros, so that counts as 2 and 4. So we've got four defensive successes, and then the Pilatus player has rolled 4 successes with 4 dice. So the Florist player has successfully defended, but with less dice. So that can be really good if you don't have a lot of high cards to use, but you do have that opening defense in your hand. It can be very, very handy. And the same goes for the other card, which is Opening Attack, which is the same thing but on the attacking side. So for example, say if I rolled, let's just flip 2 of those to 0 and keep them on successes. So now we've got 0 which is worth 2, 0 which is worth 2, so 2, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 successes. Suddenly, all of a sudden you are tripling the Florist player. So, and then of course if you triple the Florist player, the defender loses 3 health, or the defender loses 2 health and 1 defense, and that's my choice because I'm the attacker. So all of a sudden we've flipped that on its head. So those opening cards can be extremely beneficial when played at the correct time. The other really handy card when you don't have a lot of dice to roll is the Precise cards. There's both Precise for defense and Precise for attack. Basically what it does is it lets you count your attack or defense, depending on which card you've played, as 2 higher than it normally would be. So for example, if you're playing the advanced rules and you've set up your own particular oculite statistics. Say for example, this one only had an attack of 3. Well, if I play that card, all of a sudden it has an attack of 5. So it means that you're more likely to roll successes. Same goes with the precise defense. If this guy was more of an attacker but didn't have a lot of defense and was attacked, say he had a defense of 2, which isn't unusual when using a really attacking sort of oculite, especially if you're using the dynamic defense and you've lost a few defense points, the opposition's weakened you a bit, you can play your precise defense card, which ups your defense value by 2. So again, even though you may have lost some defense during a game with the dynamic defense, using these card effects can help you overcome some of these challenges. Another really useful card, now there's not a lot of these in the deck, but another useful card effect is Heal, and that can be used at the start of your turn when you activate one of your figures. So for instance, if this Nimbus figure, if I was just about to activate him for the first time on my turn, I could play this card, and it says take an awareness test with this figure. If you are successful, you may heal up to 2 lost health from the activated figure. And of course, taking an awareness test doesn't cost you an action, so this is a nice free way to get a couple of extra healing points back before maybe making out a dash for the line, or trying to steal a Sunjum, or taking on a big predator, or maybe there's a predator that you know is going to attack you next and you really need to get this figure some more health before that happens. Another really good situational card effect is Heal. I think one of the most useful card effects in the game is called Help. Now there's not a lot of these ones either because it is quite a powerful effect, but it says before a combat take an immediate free action with one of your figures that is within 4 spaces of the combat. So that's within 4 spaces of the combat, not a figure from your side. So those 4 spaces could be traced from the Hydrus here or from the Florus. Okay, so if this Florus player was attacked, before any dice or cards were played, he could play this Help card, which then allows another figure within 4 spaces to make an immediate free action. So that would be this figure here. Now this figure's got a couple of different options. You can see there's a Sunjum over here. So he can choose to go off this way and do something else, maybe attack another different figure. He can come in and attack this Hydrus figure as his free action, which would then be resolved as a gang up attack, and then after that action was resolved, then the Hydrus would get to use his attack. Or instead of that, he can then swing out this way to pick up the Sunjum. So the action that's used doesn't have to be related to that particular combat. It can be related to whatever. It's a free action. You can use it however you like. And I think this card effect can really create some very interesting decisions where you might want to do 2 or 3 of the options that you have, but you can only really do 1. But certainly creates some interesting decisions. Okay, here's a situation that you'll see happen quite a lot in the game. You'll have the Pilatus figure coming in and attacking the Nimbus figure on the right in the hopes that it will damage him enough to get the Sunjum off him. Perhaps the combat fails, or it doesn't get the desired effect that you want. After a combat, you can play this card Trip. Now by playing Trip, it allows you to place one of your opponent's figures that participated in the combat prone. This can be used for a couple of different ways. Now if I use it in this situation, that Sunjum gets dropped, and the Nimbus figure chooses where to place it. Is going to place it there. So I can use it in that sort of way for tripping him to loosen up a Sunjum. Another way you might like to use it is in a gang up attack. Okay, if the Pilatus figure happens to survive the combat, after the combat he can then choose to play Trip, which then trips one of the figures. Okay, which gives him either an opportunity to only attack one figure or to make a quick getaway without having to take more than 1 breakaway test. There's a couple of different options you can use. There's some other really good ways to use Trip, but I'll let you guys discover those by playing the game. Sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where you really need to get somewhere to get something. In this example, we've got a Sungem on the other side of the shallow lake. Now, this Pilatus figure is really nervous about going across the shallow lake because he knows that there's not many cards left in the deck, and he's seen a lot of the high cards being played. So he knows that there's a lot of low cards left in the deck, and if he draws a 1, 2 or a 3 as he moves through that shallow lake, he's going to slip and fall prone, which means that the Hydrus player is going to have an opportunity to come through and get that Sungem on his turn instead. So to make sure that he gets it, he can play something like Adaptive. And it says, for this turn only, choose one terrain piece on the board and ignore its effects and restrictions. So he can play that card there, which then allows him to move through it freely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get the Sungem and stop the Hydrus player from getting it. Adaptive can be really, really handy, especially when you have really dangerous terrain types on the board, like your lava flats, like your deep water, and even particular terrain overlays that slow things down, like the swamp, the swampy ground, and even just scenic terrain. So a very, very handy card to play. Not many of them in the deck, so you need to make sure that you use it at the most opportune moment in time. Here's another situation that might happen in one of your games of Dawn. We've got a Nimbus figure in the front there with a Sungem, and he is trying to get off the edge of the board. He didn't quite make it on his turn, and the Ignis player now has to do something to stop him from doing that. So he comes up and charges him. Okay, so there's a combat. Both players play out their combat as normal. Now, if the Ignis player can't do something to either get that Nimbus player on the ground through a trip card or through attacking and doing massive damage to him, or even possibly playing a steel card, which we'll talk about very soon, he's not going to be able to stop the Nimbus from getting off the board if the Nimbus player survives that combat and he's able to play a retreat card. If he can play a retreat card, it says, after the combat, move one or more of one of your figures a number of spaces equal to its speed without taking a breakaway test. Now, breakaway tests are normally taken to represent the other figure that you're in an adjacent space with from stopping you getting away. But this retreat, it just lets you get away straight away. So at the end of that combat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and off he goes off the edge of the board. So retreat cards can be very, very handy if kept for the right moment. Okay, the next card effect that we're going to talk about is Swing, and that is, after a combat, move your opponent's figure to any space that is adjacent to a figure that participated in the combat. So in this case, if the Pilatus player played it, he could move this Florus over to here, or this Florus over to here, or any of these spaces here. Or more usefully, if it was a Florus figure that played the card, that Florus figure could move that Pilatus right out of the way, thus freeing up this Florus Oculite for a future turn. Swing can be really, really handy in freeing up figures like that, especially during gang-up attacks. They can also be extremely handy when conducting combat in trees, because you can push them out of the tree. In the ridge scenario, when you're up on the ridge, if you have a combat on the edge of the ridge, you can basically swing them off the edge of the ridge. In any scenario where you're vying for someone's home cave, you can swing them outside the home cave, thus putting your home cave at less risk. It doesn't seem like it's, by just reading it, doesn't sound like it's a very big effect, but it can have far-reaching consequences in those niche situations like that. And it played at the right time, again, it can have a big effect on the game. I know I'm saying that a lot, but a lot of these cards, if played at exactly the right time, can have a big effect on the game. And knowing when to play them is crucial to doing well at Dawn. Okay, the next card effect is Steel, which we mentioned before. Now, Steel is a very, very good card. It says, after a combat, if your opponent's figure was carrying a Sungem and yours was not, you may take it. So in this situation, we have the Nimbus player has come up to attack the Pleiades figure. Combat has ensued, someone's lost some health, or maybe it was a draw, whatever's happened. It doesn't really matter to the Nimbus player as long as that Nimbus player survived, because their intention the whole time was to play steal, which allows them to take that Sunjum straight away from the Pleiades figure, and it becomes theirs. Steal is very important, but of course knowing what your opposition has in their hand and bluffing is extremely important, because if that Pleiades figure then hasn't already played a card on their turn, a card effect on their turn, and they have a steal card in their hand, they can play a steal and take it right back. Okay, so bluffing and knowing what to play when can be very, very important. So in this situation, if the Nimbus player knew that the Pleiades player had steal, it might choose to play trip instead, which would trip the Pleiades figure and knock that Sunjum loose. That might be more beneficial than stealing and then having it stolen back. But of course, knowing when to do that and why to do that is an integral part of it all. One of the other card effects that we've got here, it's the last unique one I suppose, is the fake out card effect. So for example, say we've got this Ignis player charges in and attacks the Pleiades figure. If that Pleiades figure only has aggressive cards in his hand, or some defensive cards that are only very low but some high aggressive cards, he can play fake out. Now it says when in combat you may use a defensive card as an aggressive card, or vice versa for this combat only. So if he had an aggressive 10, he could play the fake out and then play that aggressive 10 card as a defense. Okay? Same goes for the Ignis player. If he had, say, a defensive 10, like this, okay, he could play fake out and play that defensive 10 as an aggressive 10. So it's basically just, it allows you to utilize the cards in your hand more effectively as to how you want to use them. The other way that you can basically use fake out is by spending a tribal token from your chief, and that's actually one of his chief abilities, to use a card as if it were either aggressive or defensive. But if you don't want to spend the tribal token, you can wait for the fake out card to come up and utilize that. Another option for you to use in your games of Dawn. And of course the very last card effect that we're going to talk about today is called Any, and that is basically what it is. It can be any of the card effects that we've spoken about today. There's only one of these cards in the deck, but when you get it, it opens up your options greatly. So there you have it. I look at all the different card effects within the game of Dawn, and if you have a think about if you combine all the different card effects that you can use and all the different ways that you can use them, as well as all your different tribe effects, your terrain effects, the different scenarios and different objectives that are on offer, this can be a very, very rewarding game to play. You have so many options to use, so many ways for combats and situations to become dynamic very quickly. It's a game that I'm really, really proud of, and I think you'll find that once you're playing, the interactions that the natural selection deck bring to the game are really what gives Dawn its heart. So I hope you've enjoyed this little snapshot view, and if you have any questions, as usual, feel free to ask away and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, thanks guys, and appreciate all the support you guys have all shown for Dawn, Rise of the Oculites. Thanks very much. Bye.